This is Horror Sucks, the podcast where we watch horror movies and tell you why they suck. I'm Ashley Atkins, and I'm finally reunited with my buddy.
Yeah. I'm Carter Rhodes, and
Said buddy.
yeah, I'm the buddy.
So it's how many episodes have we done apart? 4?
Yeah, I think so. I was in Portugal. Then we wanted to do the double it up.
Yeah.
And then you were sick. More on that later. Last week. So yeah, 4. This is not our first time seeing each other, though.
No, we've hung out.
Very, very interesting. And so in an unbelievably ironic twist of fate, we were supposed to review this movie, Sick, last week.
Correct. When
Ashley became sick.
I was exposed to COVID via my parents. I never actually got sick. I don't want to jinx myself. I'm knocking on the table, which is made of wood. But I do think it is quite impressive that both my parents got it and I never tested positive.
Yeah, that's true.
But now I am out in public and
exposed in the whole world.
Yep. Free to record this episode.
So before we get into it, I just want to talk about something that happened to me in my personal life in the past couple weeks. So Val and I are big Sarah Michelle Gellar fans, and we're playing Call of Duty Zombies, and I just have this full on like flashback to middle school or high school when they released a DLC called Call of the Dead, which features Sarah Michelle Gellar as a character. Yep. And I was like, oh my God, we should play that. So we loaded up. Here are the celebrities you can play as. Sarah Michelle Gellar, Robert Englund. For those who don't know, he played Freddy.
Oh, okay.
That was pretty much, really, that was his only horror role, but he is still iconic. He is Freddy Krueger. There's Danny Trejo. I should start with Sarah Michelle Gellar. I felt she needed no introduction, but she's been in I Know What You Did Last Summer, Buffy. She's just been in Scooby-Doo. She's a horror icon.
She's earned her place to just say Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah, I just wanted to fidget. Danny Trejo, I'm like, okay, he's in a little bit more action movies, but it's certainly not out of place.
Yeah.
And then Michael Rooker. Do you know who Michael Rooker is?
The name is familiar, and it's probably because of a movie we've done.
I don't think so, but he was Merle on The Walking Dead, and best I can tell, that's the only...
That's it?
The only thing...
Then I have no idea who he is.
I mean, he was Yanu from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
The blue dude.
Yes. That is how I know him. And actually, yes, my dad was into The Walking Dead, so he...
So just...
Yeah.
Really, was that the best they could do?
That's
for
just
the
like a random selection of people. Like, Sarah Michelle Gellar and the guy who plays Freddy makes sense.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Danny Trejo, I understand it.
But he's not out of place, though.
Right.
Like, in an action zombie thing, it's like, sure, yeah, it's not really horror, but yeah, he fits.
But the last one... What was his name?
Michael Rooker. He's a pretty solid actor. He's just out of place. Anyway, luckily they handle it right, which is player 1 always gets to be Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah.
Pretty solid.
Good.
Yeah. So, that was what happened to me, was I was playing a video game starring not a character played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, but Sarah Michelle Gellar.
It's interesting that they use the actual actors and not the characters they play. Because, I would expect Buffy.
Well, the lore was that they're filming a movie when the zombie apocalypse happens.
Oh, okay.
In fact, George Romero is a zombie.
That's funny.
Which is weird, because I think he was dead at the time, but whatever.
He's a zombie.
Yeah, that's right.
That's an interesting premise, but... I'm also on a Sarah Michelle Gellar kick.
Yeah.
Currently wrapping up my binge of Buffy. I'm on the last season, thank goodness.
And meanwhile, I'm binging Seinfeld. I'm
The other day,
loving it.
yesterday at trivia, Carter goes, there was this new episode of Seinfeld
Yeah,
where this happened.
new to me.
Val and I just locked eyes as you went, new to me, guys.
Yeah, it was. So, anyway.
All right.
Now that we got the fun out of the way, it's time to talk about this movie. It's called Sick. It's a Peacock original, and it's about COVID.
Yeah, it's COVID.
Not about a COVID-adjacent virus that forces people into quarantine.
Nope.
They use actual news clips from, I believe it was CNN, about COVID.
Yeah.
They use clips of Fauci talking about the COVID virus. They call it COVID. It's COVID. And this came out 2022.
Yeah.
Don't you think it's a little early to be, especially because it was shown to be a black comedy?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
they make jokes about stuff.
I think it was a little early and also not early enough because it does... It tries to teach a lesson, but at this point, by the time it came out, the lesson was...
Yeah.
kind of mute.
It was like... Yeah, I'm trying to think of how to describe it. Is... Like, the jokes... I
will say, they don't really joke about COVID specifically. It's more just about wearing your mask.
Well, yeah, and they... It's constantly showing the people to be, like, ridiculous about it.
Yeah.
Is
It's not ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean...
It was... Like, it was just very tasteless for them to release it.
Yeah.
And so we're going to tell you about it.
All right, so before we get into it, for those of you who are new here... Thanks for joining us. How this works is that each week we watch a movie, then we will give the plot summary, we'll give some fun facts, and then we will divulge into the movie with the good, the bad, and the spooky. Then we will give a Joe DiStasio Memorial Line highlight, and our overall impressions, and a rating.
Sometimes when you talk, I think about Glass Onion, where he's like, imbreviate isn't a word. You're like,
do I talk like
you're
that?
like, we're gonna divulge into it, and I'm like, I don't think that's the right.
Did I say divulge?
Yeah, you said diverge into it, or divulge into it.
I couldn't. I still can't think of the word
Delve?
that I was. I think it's supposed to be dive.
Also works.
I think I was delve and dive, and I was trying to figure out the two of them together. And
Dive hole, and then you just finished it.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Your mind is fascinating to me. Anyway.
That doesn't sound like a compliment.
It wasn't. It's not a compliment.
All right. So this week, Carter is going to be giving the plot, which is good because I don't think I can actually say words.
Yeah. So, movie takes place in April of 2020. Pandemic's in full force. All but I think 7 states at this point have issued stay-at-home orders, and those that haven't have, like, stay-at-home adjacent orders. And it follows this college student who's being stalked via text at a grocery store. He gets home and is killed by a masked intruder. Meanwhile, well, not meanwhile, the next day, presumably, could have been a couple days, doesn't matter, Parker and Miri, 2 college students, decide that they are going to quarantine at
Parker's lake house.
Parker's dad's lake house. While there, they get the same kind of weird text messages as the dude in the cold open, but they just ignore it. And that night, while they're playing a drinking game about Fauci, as he gives, advice about how not to die, they're like, oh, he said virus, drink. It wasn't that stupid, but it was close to it.
Yeah.
So they're playing a drinking game, and then a suspicious car arrives. So the person's just banging on the door. They're like, who is it? Who is it? And then someone comes up from behind, and it's DJ. Parker's friends with benefits. Friend with benefits? What's the plural?
Friend with benefit. Well, it's only singular, so it would be friend
The
with
benefit is definitely plural.
Yeah. If you have friends with benefits, there's multiple.
So, but then
singular would be friend with benefits.
You're right. So, DJ just didn't tell them who he was because he was on the phone. It was weird.
It was the stupidest thing.
It was such a transparent fake out that it was frustrating. But anyway, they party, they smoke marijuana cigarettes, and eventually Mary goes to bed and DJ and Parker talk. So DJ saw a video of her making out with some dude named Benji at a party. They're very clear that his name is Benji. And he's like, I know you're doing this to make me jealous. I'm jealous. Let's be exclusive together. And she's like, no, I don't want to, which is just she's allowed to. It's just a bizarre decision to like, let me make him jealous. Oh boy, it worked. I have no end game. So
you've never been a college girl.
Yeah, I guess so. So DJ starts unloading the car, and while he's doing that, you see someone sneak into the house in the background. So everyone goes to sleep, but DJ goes to check his phone and realizes someone's taken his phone. In fact, they took everyone's phone. All of a sudden, music starts playing in downstairs. What was the song?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, let's look it up, because it was the same song that she was making out with Benji with. I remember. It's A Little Respect by Erasure. Anyway, so it's playing that, and she's like, ugh, it's DJ, and she starts walking, but turns out DJ, he stops her. He's like, there's someone in the house. So eventually they go to help Mary because someone's about to stab her in her room. And then Parker and Mary just fucking book it while DJ's left to fight the dude. They escape to the car, and they're like, wait, we gotta wait for DJ. He's fighting, and then he gets stabbed right by the door before he can get out. So they're waiting, and he opens the door, injured, and he's kind of moving funny. And she goes to help him, and that's when she realizes that he's, like, hoisted up on a big pole, and his feet aren't touching the ground.
It took me a while to realize what was happening.
I kind of like that. Anyway.
I agree.
Anyway. So it's just a prank. They drive away, and then the car gets stuck.
They slashed the tires.
Did they?
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, they end up running back to the house. They end up on the roof. Mary falls down. Parker ends up in the kitchen and just absolutely beats the shit out of the intruder. And that's when a second intruder appears and seems quite upset that the first intruder's hurt. So
spent quite a lot of time just screaming over the body.
Yeah, so Parker just books it. She finds Mary and she's like, just play dead. And the killer chases her. She ends up on a floating dock. The whole movie is just her running away, pretty much.
Yeah.
So she ends up on a floating dock. He swims in after her, stabs her. She makes it to the only other cabin on this lake, where she, like, manages to convince her neighbor that she's in trouble, but by the time she does, her neighbor's killed. And then she runs out of there. And then a person drives up, and she's like, please, you gotta help me. And they're like, you gotta put your mask on. So she does, and that's when she realizes that the mask is actually chloroform, and the woman's in on it. So they take her back to the house. Meanwhile, Mary crawls inside and just executes the first intruder who wasn't dead.
She also built herself a tourniquet because she broke her leg in the fall.
Yeah, but she was, like, putting weight on it.
It was... She was like, I can't move at all.
It's broken, and then she was, like, just taking ginger steps. I'm like, if it's broken, you don't put weight on it. It's that easy. So...
I don't know, I just really loved her little craft project.
Yeah. So they arrive back at the house, and they give Parker a COVID test. And then they start explaining that they're Benji's family. Their names are Pamela and Jason, the most transparent thing I've ever fucking heard. And they're seeking revenge because she went to a party during lockdown and made out with Benji. And she gave it to him. And sure enough, the COVID tested positive. She's asymptomatic. So they're going to kill her. And they mention that they've already killed the person who gave it to her, who was the guy in the beginning. And then Jason starts to be like, uh-oh, I'm worried Miri might be alive. So he goes outside, and Miri sneaks up on Pamela, and then the two of them, Parker and Miri, just kick the absolute shit out of her. They end up throwing her through a window. So Jason chases after them. They push him off, like, the second floor. He lands on deer antlers and dies. And then they go to leave in a golf cart, and Pamela returns. They just fucking set her on fire. And then that's it. That's how it ends.
The police show up.
Yeah.
Now for some fun facts. So, this movie was directed by John Hyams, who is known for... He did the new Chucky TV show.
A TV show?
Yeah.
No.
He has some movies, but I don't recognize a single one of them.
Good Lord.
So...
Do you mind if I just take a little peek?
Go ahead. Like, there's stuff there on the Wikipedia. It's just, like, nothing I recognize. Alone is a recent horror film, I think. And
I don't
think it did
recognize
well.
a single one of these. I've never heard of any of them. Yeah, that sucks.
So the movie stars Gideon Adlon. Is what I'm going with.
Sure.
She's known for... She was in the Craft Legacy movie that came out in 2020. She's also in the show The Society, which someone we went to high school is in that show.
Oh, who?
Ryan. I knew him because he did theater at the high school for a while. I forget his name though, but not important. It also stars Beth Million as Miri. This is her first thing. Mm-hmm. Jane Addams as Pamela. She was in a movie called Happiness. And Mark Mekanaba. Nope, there's no B. Menchaca.
Okay.
Sure, Chaka?
I don't know.
I don't know either. He was in Alone. Okay, so there are two fun facts about this movie. One of which Carter already pointed out, which is that the parents' names are Pamela and Jason, which is a reference to the Friday the 13th franchises. The second one is that this movie features a character taunted via phone, as does Screen, which is also written by Kevin Williamson. This movie was written by
Explains a lot.
Kevin Williamson. Yeah, it does explain a lot. Mm-hmm. And that's all I have for you.
All right.
Poorly delivered.
Yeah. So, in the absence of more facts, I'm going to share one of my favorite ones. In the U.S. alone, 1,097,474 people have died of COVID-19. Pretty cool of them to make a movie poking fun about that, right? How silly everyone was about masks. That's pretty cool. So, let's talk about the good. The good. Dun, dun, dun. So the first thing I have on my list is Call of Duty Zombies. Luckily, I already remembered to talk about that, so we don't have to.
How does that relate to this movie?
It didn't. I just wanted to talk about it.
You just wanted to talk about it? Okay.
It relates to horror.
Sure. Yeah, no. It was something to talk about. It just made it to your good list. Mm-hmm. What is your actual first good?
I really liked the cold open. It was very plain, but it fit thematically really well. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be a self-contained kind of story. Yeah. Granted, the story wasn't interesting, but it didn't give much away. And that's something that kind of frustrates me with some movies, is when it's like backstory that makes you understand what's happening.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because they weren't like, weird that our friend died. How's our friend doing?
Yeah,
like,
we found out later on how they connected.
Yeah. He was only just incidentally related to her.
Honestly, that was one of the only things really keeping me going through the movie, is figuring out how they were connected.
Yeah.
So my thing, I thought the quality of the film was pretty good. Like, you're giving a face.
Well, I mean, I wasn't sure what you meant, like the filming or the film.
The filming.
Okay.
Like, you know, the lighting was good. Yep. There was no complaints on that end.
The camera work was pretty solid.
Yeah.
I was not expecting it to be solid, but I guess most of my problems are with the writing of this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
The fact that it takes place in such a big house and it's like 3 people really does a great job of capturing the feeling of like isolation and loneliness. It doesn't feel cozy. It feels very fancy, but like empty.
I think too, it's kind of, I like how they juxtaposed it, because it's also a log cabin. Mm-hmm. So it's supposed to kind of give the impression that it's supposed to be cozy, but it's the opposite. Mm-hmm. I liked that.
On top of that, it's very much like a new house built to look old cabin-y. There was also some other stuff they did that I liked, like when Parker and DJ were talking, they would have shots from inside the house of them talking outside, and that did a good job of capturing the feeling of being watched.
Yeah, it's similarly when Parker was on the raft and the guy was in the water, they had like shots not quite in the water, but like just at the water surface watching her. I liked that as well. I liked how they filled the house. You know, we kind of saw them go all over the place. I know the complaint is that all they did was run away and that was it. But I felt like they made good use of such a large space.
They also filmed not all of, but a lot of the fight scenes were filmed in one shot. And I thought it was cool. I have more complaints about it because the fact that it was filmed in one shot meant that it was like all shaky cam and it was impossible to see what was happening.
That is true, yeah. I thought the audio was pretty good for the most part. I thought the songs that were playing as background music were good.
Okay.
Like, I thought they did a good job of setting the mood. Overall quality of audio, I have some complaints there, but for the most part, like, I like noticed the songs and was like, huh, this kind of fits here. I vibe. They have that like haunting like one that I was like, oh, every horror soundtrack ever. Yeah. But I liked it.
The scene of the guy walking into the house while DJ was unloading his car was fantastic. Like, the lighting really drew your eye to the movement of the guy moving. And it was out of focus, so it didn't feel like, make sure you guys are watching, because there's going to be something in the background. And the fact that he just went inside, where we knew that Parker and Miri were getting ready for bed or already in bed, really added a level of, like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like we didn't know where the jump scare was going to come from. And that was something that they failed to do in a lot of movies, is we knew the guy was in the house. I think it was the fact that they outnumbered him.
Yeah.
Is we knew when it's one-on-one, you know it's going to happen. And it's not like... It's just not stressful watching Dylan Minnette wander around the house knowing that there's probably 2 killers, both with knives. And I'm like, yeah, he's going to die.
Right. But this one guy coming into this house of 3 people...
He's going to wait to strike.
Yeah.
We know that. So it's exciting and tense when they come back in and you don't see anyone there. He's just getting ready for bed. It's really... I like that quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked that too. One thing I also really liked kind of about our killer, he was a normal person. I actually really liked it. It was like kind of impressive how you know, much this guy could put up with and do, but like it wasn't like a scary creature. Like, it wasn't like Jason where it's like, you know, we know that he can't be hurt, or Michael Myers that we know that he can't be hurt. It was just like a normal guy. I kind of liked that.
I really like the scene. There's a scene where he lights a joint. It's just filmed beautifully. I don't know how to describe it, but as he's smoking, it like there's no smoke coming out. It's just like this ring of fire around the thing. It's like filmed in high definition, slow motion. It just kind of ignites, glows for a minute, and then he just lets out this big puff of smoke. It was just this beautiful shot. I was not expecting it. Then my last thing that I would say I liked was the chloroform mask, because the scene in which the woman is like, you need to put on a mask before you get in, was it was in the trailer. It was heavily used in the advertisements. So, honest to God, my guard was down.
Yeah.
I did not think this woman was a part of it.
Honestly, no. I think that was one of the best parts of the movie was her being revealed as the villain, because I thought she was just, based on the trailer, you thought she was just comic relief and she was going to drive off because she was like, where's your mask? And then like that would be it. But I also, that caught me off guard.
That scene where Parker gets in, she's like, drive, and the woman's just sitting there staring at her, that was really creepy.
The mom in general is my favorite part of this movie. She's just so like, she acts so calmly and like almost rationally while like executing this ridiculously unrational like monologue of how the fact that like she felt that she killed her son and like she killed the other, we took care of the other guy already. Like it just was like such mom vibe, but like also I'm here to kill you. I thought she was great. I thought the actress did a really good job of just creating that peacefulness.
She's like reminding her husband to put his mask back on.
Honey, put your mask on. Like your mask. It was just so, I thought that was really good. Yeah.
All right, are you ready to talk about the bad?
Ready.
The bad.
So, what I thought was personally the worst part of this movie was the fact that it was based around COVID-19. I feel like I've made my disgust for that pretty clear. I don't have any personal stake in this. Like, no one I know died of COVID.
Me either.
I can't even think of anyone. But it's just so frustrating to have spent a year and a half, probably longer, of your life trying to keep you and your loved ones safe, just for this movie to be like, aren't people silly that this woman coughed and everyone in line like turned and gave her a dirty look?
Yeah. Oh, that was traumatizing for me.
And it was just the juxtaposition of this, especially knowing that it wasn't a joke. We know what happened to it. It didn't blow over.
Yeah.
That it was juxtaposed so terribly with these girls being kind of, or with Parker really being kind of iffy on it. Like, I'll be fine. We're too young to get sick. Like, there was the Fauci drinking game. It was like the most horrifying thing to me. Not because, drinking game, whatever. It was set to real footage of the Illinois governor complaining that it was difficult to get necessary medical supplies.
Yeah.
When the task force set up was directed not to help states that were critical of the then president. Which is, what's a crime is the nicest way I can think of it.
That
Indirect
situation.
murder is the less nice way of putting what I consider that. So, like, and we're in Massachusetts. They had to have Charlie Baker had to have Robert Kraft fly in millions of masks in his private plane because the federal government would just show up and be like, "Yeah, no, we need this," and empty the stockpile.
Yeah.
Like they would lie about where they were keeping masks because if they were honest about it, they wouldn't have any.
Right.
So the fact that they're playing this silly little fun game is just horrifying that that the writers thought it was okay to do this. It trivializes this whole thing.
You're absolutely right. What's horrifying is the fact that people actually did that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
I mean, I don't even really blame the characters. Or like, I never played a COVID drinking game, but it's not weird to me that like, especially considering how often buzzwords were thrown around, like flatten the curve. Like it was everywhere. I can see why people were like, oh, drink, flatten the curve.
True.
Drink, they said novel virus.
Yeah.
But
no, the fact that the writers decided that's what they needed to be including in this movie is...
It was disgusting, is
yeah.
what it is. And then the killer's motive was literally like 2 minutes in the movie. I was like, what's the worst possible killer's motive? Is it people killing them because they're not being like cautious around COVID? And sure enough, that was the fucking ending.
Yeah, no, I honestly predicted the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we met the main characters and we saw that scene of her kissing that guy.
Yeah.
Like, obviously it was going to be related to him.
Mm-hmm. It was so transparent. Every feature of this movie, like the misleads when they're... First of all, the car pulling up and it's DJ, that was actually one of the spookier scenes in the movie, is because it's a very grounded scene.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you must have experienced something similar where you're supposed to be alone at a house and a car pulls up and you don't know who's in it.
Yeah, that's my worst nightmare.
It's a pretty common thing. It's very grounded. I liked that a lot.
Yeah.
But I knew immediately it was a mislead.
I also did too. And then it was just ruined by DJ being on the phone and not talking to them.
Yeah.
Like...
Obviously just trying to explain it to the audience.
It would have been more interesting if he was like, boo, as he like walked up behind them. That would have been...
That would have been a little cliche, but...
Yeah, but you know what? It would have been better than him just being, I was on the phone.
Yeah.
How the...
That was bad, yeah.
Also, like, what I didn't understand, like, they did it just for the purpose of, like, when they opened the door, he wouldn't be there. Why he would go around if he was on the phone. If he was on the phone, he would wait in his car, finish his conversation, then walk in.
Especially since in the story, he was going there to meet Parker.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't like her brother meeting her at their shared lake house. He had nothing to do there if she wasn't in that house.
Right. It made no sense for him to sneak in after pulling up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then of course he's like, I was on the phone, what do you
Yeah.
expect? I'm trying to get an internship for next semester. Like, what?
Yeah.
It was, you're... Piss me off.
Yeah. The scene where she goes to her neighbor... Like, I'm still on the transparency thing. When she goes to see her
exactly
neighbor,
what was gonna
and
happen.
it was like, well, this guy's about to die. As soon as he starts to believe her, sure enough, he's like, grumpy guy. Then he recognizes her. He's like, okay. And then he dies. I'm like, oh.
Not only that, as soon as she was, like, breaking into the house, I was like, oh, he's gonna walk out with a gun pointed at her.
Yeah.
Like, there was nothing about that was shocking.
Then there's Benji. She's like, yeah, man, he totally ghosted me. And then she, like, all but looks into the camera. And I was like, I get it. It's not that clever. And lastly, Pamela and Jason. So transparent. It's not...
Keep going.
Jason I don't care about. Yeah, name your character Jason, whatever.
It is naming
bad.
Them Pamela and
it
Jason.
is bad, actually, that the killer was named Jason. They're not just using a character's name. But Pamela was the worst, because Pamela, in the first Friday the 13th movie, was someone who looked like they were supposed to be helping.
Right.
And it turns out they're the killer.
Yeah.
And they're the mom of, like, the character the movie's kind of centered around. She plays the exact same role. It's not a reference. It's like...
It's a copy.
Yeah.
I have to agree with you. So, one issue I had with the movie is it kept doing this thing where they would delay a kill or a jump scare. Mm-hmm. They did it in the cold open at first, and I was like, okay, like, I don't hate it. Mm-hmm. but then it was like one after another where it would like there'd be a battle, then the killer would go away, and they would kind of be like looking around doing the thing, like trying to make sure, and then immediately like be attacked again. And it was just like, is it supposed to be a jump scare? If it was, like, you did a bad job.
Yeah.
If it wasn't, like, why are we creating this space? It doesn't create tension. It was dumb and I didn't like it. The first time I was like, okay, it's interesting, question mark. But after the second time I was like, and I think they did it like 4 more times.
Yeah. That drove me nuts in the first one where he was attacked, successfully locked himself in his room, and then came out. I don't criticize decision making in horror movies a lot.
Oh, I do.
Like, I mean, it's just low hanging fruit is all. But this was, I was like, holy shit, he escaped. He made it to his room, shut the door, barricaded it, and had a baseball bat. At this point, he had already like blasted the front window of a pretty populated student area.
Yeah.
So someone was going to come to help eventually. There was a tiny window behind him that surely no one could have got through, especially because it's on the second floor.
Right. He should have just stayed in the barricaded room.
And he's just like, well, he's probably gone. My baseball bat, I'm sure, is plenty good enough. And gets killed. It was just stupid.
Yeah. Another thing I thought was stupid, they kept reminding us that they had to be wearing masks. But then they'd be inside and they'd be, in quotes, 6 feet apart without wearing their mask. But I'm pretty sure the rule didn't apply for being inside. It was, if you were outside, you had to be 6 feet apart.
Yeah. Especially at that time period.
Right. And like...
Oh, by the way, you did miss a fun fact. I just remembered it.
What?
They give Parker a COVID test, and it's that lollipop style, like, stick it in your nose and then you fold the paper over.
Yeah.
That was not invented in April 2020.
I didn't think so.
It was a different kind, and even when it was invented, like a month later, you couldn't get it.
No.
Civilian use.
Also, just the way she like COVID tests her and like really sticks it up there as far as possible is so unnerving.
Yeah.
But then the fact that they attacked them and were trying to kill them, but then also she was like, all right, let's chloroform her so we can give our monologue and give a COVID test to prove to her that she's passing around symptoms. It made no sense.
Yeah.
Like whatsoever. Did not like that. But there was one scene which I forgot to mention in my good. They're dancing in the basement.
I like the basement scene.
And DJ and Parker are not wearing masks because they're stupid. But Miri is. But she's spraying Lysol as she's dancing. And
yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny.
So all of the 3 main characters are like pretty unlikable.
Yeah.
So first of all, Parker and DJ are pretty obnoxious. None of them, DJ and Parker, neither of them follow the COVID guidelines.
Right.
Which, whatever. Like, if it's 3 people in a house, you guys can give each other COVID. It's not my business. But it clearly was making Miri uncomfortable that they weren't putting on their mask. She kept saying it. And so they're like, that was pretty shitty of them.
Yeah.
Parker had some weird plan to like make her friends with benefits jealous just to reject him. Miri was this just cliche like smart girl where DJ says this spooky ghost story and she's like, actually that has origins back from ancient Mesopotamia. And that's why I'm not scared. And I'm like, oh my God, you are every character that I hated.
Just ever.
Yeah. Then, DJ just shows up to her house uninvited, which is a really strange thing to do during a pandemic.
It was very Zombievers, but way worse.
Yeah, because... and then because they were so unlikable, I just didn't care.
They could have died.
Yeah, I had no real tension.
No, there wasn't any tension at all.
Mm-hmm. I will say there was some good scenes, like when I mentioned when he walked in, that was tense, even though I didn't give a shit what happened.
Yeah.
It was mostly the fight scenes that I guess I didn't care about.
The scene where she's bashing his face in,
Mm-hmm.
and they just, like, hold it as, like, she's wailing on the guy's face, just was like, okay, we get it. Are we done yet? But then also the guy somehow manages to wake up from that, which...
I mean, yeah, like, that was a thin pot. She couldn't have killed him.
I guess.
I mean, she could have, but she didn't. The raft scene, I thought could have had tension if they showed him get in the water, but they didn't. He just kind of stood there watching her, and then, like, surprise, started grabbing the raft. At its core, it was just a really simple slasher. Like, there was no complications. Like, people try to kill people. They explain why they fail.
Yeah, no, and like, and knowing that the writer wrote Scream, like, it is very simple like that, but Scream just had a lot of really good elements that this movie did not.
That, by the way, the elements he had no control over.
Right.
Those are elements established 15 years earlier, or however long. God, it was 20-something.
No, he wrote the original Scream.
He did, really?
Yes, this is the original screenwriter.
I'm not sure I believe you. I'm going to look that up.
Look it up. I made sure to look it up to make sure, because I also thought it was the new Screams.
It has way more in common with the new Screams than the old one.
I know it does, but...
No, he did also write the
new Screams.
Oh, wait a minute. No, he was an executive producer, which means nothing at all. Ah, that explains it. He wrote The Following. Trash! The Following... Now, that's a weird show, because...
Oh, he also wrote the screenplay for I Know What You Did Last Summer.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I had that up and I didn't see it.
You had to scroll down on the Wikipedia page.
God, he really is all over the place. He's like Scream.
It's so strange.
Scream 2. I Know What You Did Last Summer. Halloween H2O.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So anyway, part of what made The Following so terrible was that, like, both the main characters and the bad guys were comically terrible at doing what they were trying to do.
What is The Following? I feel
The concept is this writer kind of has this cult, and they break him out of jail, and it's about about people.
Kevin Bacon's in it.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
but like,
I remember this.
So like the cult would do something stupid and get caught, and I'm like, oh, okay, so it's about the police catching them, and then the police would like accidentally let them go or something, and I'm like, so it's about, I'm like, I'm okay rooting for the bad guy, especially, you know, if they're good at what they're doing, but
yeah. Anyways, though, that's not what this is about.
I'd rather be talking about The Following, but yeah.
Let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
All right.
The texting served no purpose whatsoever.
No.
None.
Yeah, in the first scene, it was kind of like it was setting it up to lead somewhere, and then as soon as we meet our main character, she was like, blocked, done, like, which would be my reaction. Mm-hmm. But I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Then there's just a lot of goofy ass scenes of the killers getting like smashed with shit. It's bad.
Yeah. The fight choreography was not great.
Yeah. And then lastly, the fight choreography, you reminded me that I liked that it was filmed in one take or one shot, but that just meant it was so shaky and it just wasn't done well. So that's a negative.
All right. Let's move on to the spooky.
The spooky!
You already mentioned mine, but
okay.
I'll say it was when she was in the car with the mom.
Especially when she just turns to look at her and doesn't do anything for a second.
And she's just kind of staring right at her. Like, smells like chloroform.
Yeah, it was pretty... That was spooky.
That was spooky, yeah.
I mentioned that I liked the guy walking into the house. That set
Yeah.
up some of the only tension in the entire movie. And then I really liked the scene where he had him impaled on the pole and his feet were dragging. That was pretty cool. It was a little obvious what was happening, but it was still the fact that it showed his feet like barely touching the ground. They did a good job of focusing on the small stuff to really bring you into it instead of just be like as soon as I saw him leave, I was like, oh, I know what's happening.
Yeah.
But they still managed to make it kind of a scene that sticks with you.
Yeah, for sure.
So for my overall notes,
Oh, okay.
I feel like I've made myself clear. I thought it was incredibly tasteless. I will say it didn't have as much as it wasn't a lot of like making fun of COVID. It was probably only a couple jokes in the entire movie, but the fact that those jokes were like unambiguously about the people wearing masks and stuff that frustrated me.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I don't know, it wasn't like a joke about COVID. It was like a joke about people not wanting to get COVID, people afraid of COVID. I'm like, that's tasteless.
I agree.
And then when you boil it down, it's a really just boring old slasher that had some pretty good scenes
There were
in it.
some moments, yeah.
But very plain story.
Yeah. I agree on all your notes. I have nothing to add there, to be honest.
Yeah.
All right, do you have a line?
Yeah, so the Ralph Bones memorial line highlight. Very funny to hear you with Fiona trying to figure out what it was.
I forgot what it was.
I also heard you talk about the skeleton and acid. And I'm like, Ashley, there's no way they used real acid on the...
Yeah, did you see my note in the show notes?
Like, well, you can have it dissolve. I'm like, it's not
I was
acid.
like, as I was editing it, I was like, I am a freaking idiot. Like, I was like, I can't believe I said this on the podcast. I can't get rid of it. But like, I needed to say, like, I know I'm stupid. It was late. We watched that movie right before recording.
Yeah.
And I was cold and wanted to go home.
Yeah. You could have turned on the heat.
I didn't know how.
Okay.
I do now. We went over
Yep.
this.
All right. So, what did you rate this movie?
I gave it a 5.
5 what?
5 stupid kids. I know there was only 3
Yeah, I
of
was
them.
gonna say. Well, actually,
Well,
Benji
technically,
and
Benji
then
and the
the dude from the beginning.
yeah. So
I would say that's
5 stupid kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, was it the worst movie I've ever seen? No. Was it good? No.
Mm-hmm.
I know 5 puts it at a middle of the road, but I don't think it deserves a 4. I really need to get better about rating.
Yeah.
Because, like, I think it's better than Megan, which I gave a 4 to for some reason.
I don't know why you did that.
I don't know either. So maybe I just need a clean slate.
Yeah. So I gave it 3 divulsions. So, yeah, it was...
I'm leaving.
It was bad.
Yeah, all right.
It was not so bad that it was the worst thing I've ever seen, but it was tasteless and done pretty poorly.
Yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What are we watching next week?
I don't remember.
I don't. Oh no, we're doing Coraline next week.
Yes, that's right. We will be joined by our good friend Nika.
You know, I have seen Coraline so many times.
That sucks.
I can't wait to watch it again.
After that, Nika and I are driving to Western Mass to see a Stice concert.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, if you, the listener, don't know who Stice is, Stice. Check them out on Spotify. It's the most unhinged. I don't know what to call it. It's like musically, technically very well made, but like.
Oh, you've shown me these guys.
Yeah. Let me think of a good example. There's a song in their new album called "I Piss Myself,"
I was just about to say that.
and they're not shy of saying the phrase "I piss myself." There's another song called Vor Night, another one called My Life as a Dog in Heat. And I quite like that because my friend Oliver has a great phrase, which is, I like it when the subtext is the text. Their first album was called The Very Best of Stice. And
that's pretty funny.
And they're I don't know her name, but the lead singer, she does a lot of like, I don't know what to call it, not performance art, but like she invented this language that's actually kind of the best thing I've ever heard. She's like, you need to know all of these letters to speak English. A, B, C. Where does it end? So she created this. It's called Tenny. It's 10 symbols, and every word is like pictographically described using those symbols. So for Cage, it was man, wall, beast, like a wall that separates man and beast. It's pretty good.
No, I know it is. I'm reading the little synopsis on Spotify. It just looks like a bunch of random words smushed together.
Yeah, it's amazing. I recommend listening to Stice. Anyway, that's what Nika and I are doing.
Fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be a blast.
I told my mom wants to go out Saturday morning, and I was like, ooh, like, I have to record with Carter. And she goes, the thing we wanted to do doesn't open till 11. And I was like, that is Saturday morning for Carter. Yeah. What do you mean?
Why would I get up early?
But all right, I think we've taken up enough of your time.
Yeah, this is going to be a pretty crisp episode. We didn't dilly-dally very much.
No, there wasn't also a whole lot to say either. All right.
Yeah, it was one of those bad things where it's just so bad it's not even worth like.
Yeah, it's not entertaining.
Yeah, it was a bad movie.
Versus The Bone Snatcher ended up being entertaining. Mm-hmm. I will give it that.
You know what I think about this movie actually?
What?
It's like if the Scream 5 Cream, it's like if that wasn't attached to any franchise.
Yeah.
If that was a standalone movie, I was like, wow, that was terrible in some parts, acceptable in others, and overall not good.
Yeah. I think that's a very good way to put it. Okay. All right.
So terrible.
Thank you all for listening. We truly appreciate it. If you liked what you hear, leave us a review. And
stay spooky.
Horror Sex is brought to you by Wild Thing Media. Editing done by one of us.